Hey guys, with Ezareth, this little guy right here coming out, as is customary whenever a new lord comes out, I do a lord tier list. And this one's going to be so different because in the time between, I think the last lord was Nastia and Ezareth, we have gotten a couple new things, alright? So recently, we got the new gear dungeons, which are very difficult, and then we have also gotten the biggest, hardest new piece of content, Matrix, which has really shaken up the Lord tier list. And the rankings that I show you guys today are not only going to be ones that you guys might not agree with, but I stand by, but they're also going to be drastically different from the last time that I made one of these videos. So strap in, buckle up, and let's get right into it. So starting off immediately, we are going to place down our first lord, which is going to be Hars in the dumpster tier. Now, the tiers that I do have here are meta defining. These are the lords that are going to carry you through the game. If you do not have them, they are going to be at the top of your list. Must have units. All right. They're going to be amazing in one to multiple pieces of content. Well, all of them are going to be amazing in multiple pieces of content, either being by far the best option or just usable everywhere. You'll see. Amazing are the lords that are really good, but they just don't stack up the same way to the lords above them. Then we have solid. These are going to be lords that you kind of want. They're going to be useful in some areas, but they're just not as good as the ones above them. Niche is going to be for the lords that have very limited uses and really just aren't the best right now in the current meta. And then we have the dumpster tier where Hars is going to go. Basically, we're grading this on two things: how the unit is in general and how they are as a lord itself. So lord bonus and unit potential will be key. And the reason why Hars is at the bottom is largely because his faction is garbage. Northern faction has been the worst faction in the game for a while. Infernal Blast is kind of there, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, North Throne, basically every single good Lego in this faction is kind of better on their other faction. I mean, Ardea with Chaotic, Airless with Watcher, Draylen with Watcher, Valkyra is like the only good DPS with Northern. They just don't have a lot of DPS, and a lot of their units are kind of dog water. And the thing is, Hars itself is a pretty bad unit. Now, I have seen him used a little bit more in a couple areas, which is why, in my opinion, he's not the worst lord in the game. We will get to those shortly. But King Hars is not great, okay? He's not the best tank. His lord bonus is kind of mediocre, and he has a couple uses. Like, you could use him in tank codex, in which case the epic is actually better, which is freaking Isolde. Here, if we look at my score is with Isolde because she gives extra block. So in the main tank content, he's not even the main use. But the thing is, in Matrix, you know, Northerners are a little bit better. He's still by far the worst lord for that, which we'll get to later. I just think Hars kind of lacks in a lot of areas, deserves dumpster tier. Now, moving on, we have, honestly, let's do Elder. Elder, in my opinion, has gone from also being dumpster, with Matrix bringing him to solid. Now, hear me out here. So I said best in some pieces of content, or at least very good in certain pieces of content. And I have to kind of break down the viewpoint that I have for this game, at least when it comes to rankings, okay? I am ranking this from an end game player's perspective. I am missing 6 units. The reason why it is 6 is because the new heroes came out and they are unobtainable. I'm actually missing 5 units in the game, okay? Not only that, I am endgame in everything. I mean, I could just show you guys Immortal Codex. I'm top 3 on both of them right now. I'm an endgame player, and that is the perspective I'm looking at this. Now, objectively, the hardest piece of content with the least amount of flexibility is areas like Matrix 1. So, while I do value being used in a lot of areas, if you're good in Matrix, or if you're good in, you know, Abyss, if you're good in Arena, these are a lot of really endgame areas where you need to have the specific meta units. And if you don't have the specific meta units, you are going to struggle, okay? So I'm looking at very hard pieces of content. For example, Geary 2, You know, Hars is decent for Gear Raid 2, but Gear Raid 2 is the easiest Gear Raid to complete, so I'm going to weigh it a little bit less. The reason why Elder's so high is because of Matrix. Elder is one of the most meta units for it. Now, there are a couple people who are running Valderon. The one thing about Valderon teams for this is they require high awakenings. They require every single unit that you see here, at least all of the support ones, and they require good ass gear. Now, everyone else you're going to see is Elder. Okay, I've done countless takeovers for this. I have played with so many different teams, and Elder just provides a lot of flexibility for this, because not only does he buff Ardea, who is easily the second best DPS, here it doesn't really reflect it, but on a lot of teams, Ardea is matching Neja damage, or at least getting close, because Neja has Execute and is going to scale a bit higher, but Ardea is really good. And who buffs Ardea? Well, either Valderon or Elder. And Elder is a lot more accessible. Not only that, if you have his A1 makes him give shields to people around him, which makes it really a lot easier to keep your Ezareth alive, which is huge. Not only that, with his buff, hot take, I think his buff is actually really good. His rework, or whatever you might call it. I think it's actually pretty solid, okay? I've seen him used in a couple other areas, but mainly Matrix, he actually does have a place now. And compared to the things that are going to go below it, having a place, especially in such a contested content that is very difficult, is a big benefit, okay? So he's going in solid. Moving on, we got Ymrit, who is also going to be going in solid. The thing about Ymrit is, once you get Valara, Ymrit kind of trickles off. He does physical and magic damage, which is good. He's not as meta as he used to be, but he still is pretty good. And yes, I am ranking the unnamables. I always do this, even though they're not technically lords. Ymrit still has a little bit of use in GVG. He has some use in some codexes. If you look at Mentaiko right here, he is using Ymrit to some good effect, which is pretty hype. I've seen him use Ymrit in a couple areas. And then Ymrit's also really meta in a few places. The main one recently is Gear Dungeon 213, which is probably execution-wise one of the hardest pieces of content in the entire game. That's a really good bonus, because he does both magic and physical, and you want that for that stage. Ymrit's better than people give him credit for. Someone that people should stop getting credit for, unfortunately, is Gone. Gone is going in niche. Now, hear me out. This is probably going to be one of the most contested opinions I have in this tier list. Gone has fallen off, okay? Chaotix have fallen off. If we look at good Chaotix, Sargak is no longer as good as he used to be. Sithra is good in Arena, but that's only because low BP abuse is really prevalent. Apart from that, she's not really meta on a chaotic side, okay? Ardea, good. But honestly, I think Ardea is overrated now, which you don't have to agree with, but I think she's only used in a couple areas, right? And if we look at Gone as a whole, what are some areas Gone is good in? Well, is he good in Matrix? Is he good in Abyss? No, because he doesn't tank well enough. He dies immediately, so therefore he's not very useful there. Is he useful in Arena? No. The main areas Gone is useful is going to be codexes, okay? There's two codexes, Tank Codex and this Codex. But what do we see here? Well, we see in the top 5, one person is using Gone. Now, he is on the best team. That's cool, right? He's meta here. But you don't need Gone anymore for Conqueror Codex, now that Ezareth and Valderon teams are a lot more prevalent. And then the other area is he's still pretty good in Tank Codex. Now, apart from that, I'm pretty sure there's another area like Malware Calls. Malware Calls, he gains extra block in his ult to a total of 7 if you have a Bash Ring on him. He's actually really good there as a tank, and you can use him as a Lord as well. But that's kind of it. He doesn't tank well enough. Chaotics are not that useful on chaotic teams anymore, and if you're going to use a chaotic, just use Valderon, because at least you get a unit that does something. Unfortunately, Gone has to go there, in my opinion. Now, moving on, let's go to a little bit more of a positive note. I want to talk about our big friend, Toreador. Toreador is meta-defining still to this day, in my opinion. Not only is he a really good Lord for a faction that is getting a little bit phased out recently. but it's still amazing because of Kagiri and Wukong. Two of the strongest units in the game are in this faction. Helsing came out, he's pretty good. Moradin's still decent. He's not like the best, but he's decent. Torador is an amazing lord for this faction. I think in terms of raw lord, he's not the best, but he does have the added benefit of being debatably a top 3, maybe even top 2 raw tank in the game. He's very good, okay? Areas like GVG, which is very, very difficult. Now, we're kind of running troll teams here, but basically, Torador's meta in GVG. Torador can be used in Abyss, one of like the 4 most used factions, has Torador in it. Not currently because high scores don't use him, but he is still useful there. Basically, anywhere you need a tank, if you need a tank that has multiple lives, that's very tanky, that stuns, that has a good lord bonus for a very solid faction, Torador is really good. I think Torador is still in meta-defining tier, even if he's not as good as some other things we'll get to. I think he's pretty damn good. Now we can get to another hero that has gotten a lot better, Demi. I think Demi's amazing. It's kind of a hard thing to argue, but the thing is, Demi is pretty damn good at Matrix. She's still in some of the meta teams, as you can see right here. 72k is not like insane, but this is obviously an auto. We have Demi right here. Demi isn't like 100% full meta, but she still is very, very, very solid for areas like Matrix. Not only that, she is probably one of the best units in the game for Gear Dungeon 1. You either have all of the units like Ezareth, Valise, Valara, things like that, or you run a freaking Demi. And then Demi does all the work because she anti-heals and she does a ton of damage. I think Demi's a lot better than she used to be because AoE content is a lot more prevalent. The reason why I ranked her so low before is because there were so many replacements, right? The only piece of AoE content was Gear 124. Now, AoE content's actually very difficult and you need a good damage dealer, and she is the one that brings you that, alright? Not only that, anti-healing is better. Now we get to Ajax. Ajax is bottom of niche. Ajax literally is just there if you have a team of 9 units, you don't know what to put in, you put down Ajax because she buffs everyone's damage by like 4%, whatever it is. That's kind of it. That's all Ajax is these days. Too expensive, doesn't do enough, damage is too low, needs a buff. That's just how Ajax is, unfortunately. Now we get to Nestia. Nestia is also meta-defining, I would argue better than Torador. All they gotta do is say a couple things. The main thing I want to say is this faction, Esotericist, has Valara in it, it has the Poison comp in it, it has Beatrix in it, and it has Neja in it. To this day, one of the best factions in the game. Also, I have heard a couple people have said she's not meta in GVG. I promise you, she is meta in GVG. She's not like the most #1 meta, but that's purely because Praetus is the #1 meta. And you want to know what you run if you don't use Praetus? You run Nestia. There's 2 teams that always work, no matter what. We're running a lot of troll defenses. It's hard to show it. But basically, there's 2 defenses that you always see. You either see a Pope defense or you see a Nestia defense. GVG, super meta. Not only that, she's part of the best magic side of Abyss. Absolutely meta as hell. Personally, I run a poison comp right here. Now I have an A5 Kagiri. I didn't at the time that I got this. Nestia is amazing there. Great BP and GVG. She's even useful without the freaking poison comp because, I mean, she's really good in Malware calls. I highly recommend trying her out. You just run Nestia, you run Valara, and you call it Warriors Codex most meta unit in the game. Debatably, because if you don't have her, you just can't compete in that. I think she's amazing. She's amazing everywhere. Good single target damage. Best lord in terms of damage in one of the best factions in the game. She's not anything but S tier. No matter who tells you she's not, she's meta there. Nesso that isn't meta is going to be Venoma though. Venoma, in my opinion, is not the worst lord in the game because Twin Fiend is worse than Bonoma, in my opinion. Let me talk about it. So, Bonoma is unimaginably garbage. Bonoma needs a buff. She's been terrible since she was released. Well, not since she was released. She used to be more useful. But basically, Bonoma sucks, okay? Esotericist faction is good, but she does nothing. The only benefit she has is being part of a good faction. What does she do? She gives extra rage on first deployment. Now, if you're progressing through the game, this is actually a good Lord skill, but for everything else, this is terrible. It's a one-time does something, and then nothing else. And then you just get the attributes. She becomes an epic after, basically, because she doesn't actually have a good legendary Lord bonus. Not only that, she is terrible. She does no damage, no actual CC. Hex is still terrible. She's just bad. Like, she has no place in the game. Except, if you are lacking Esotericist heroes, Eso is still one of the most meta for Matrix. I have used Bonoma against my will in Matrix, and technically she has a use, okay? You want to know who doesn't have a use? Twin Fiend. Twin Fiend is so bad. Infernals are so bad. In my opinion, the only faction that is on the same level as Northerner, maybe even worse, maybe not, but still pretty damn bad, is Infernals. Infernals are really bad. I mean, Diao-chan's great, Hex is great, Phineas is decent, that's kind of it. There's not really much else going for them except for Setram. And all of these heroes that I mentioned, in the realm of, you know, using them on an Infernal team, the only content after a certain point that you use Infernals is freaking Abyss. That's it. As you can see, Gort running an Infernal, they're not as good as the freaking Poisoner for high scores, but that doesn't matter. Getting 60k, they are pretty good. Well, what is the best Lord here is Sul'Kaden is not even close, because Twin Fiend is garbage. Now, if you can hit 60k with Twin Fiend, you can most likely hit 60k with Pyros. A legendary Lord shouldn't be similar to a non-Lego Lord. Also, if you get Sul'Kaden's, Twin Fiend will never be used on your account a single time, even in cases like Iovar being definitively better than Naraka. Technically, you can use Naraka for a couple very niche things. Twin Fiend will never get used, okay? He does no damage, his buffing's bad, he actually makes your other DPS worse unless it's Zillitu, who's also bad. Phineas is good, though. Twin Fiend is the worst one in the game, in my opinion. He's so bad. Moving on, let's get to another highly rated unit in Valderon. I'm not all the way sold on Valderon, and I'm not putting him meta-defining. Because, well, let's talk about it. Valderon does decent damage, but his Lord skill is not great, okay? If you use Valderon, you're using Valderon for his damage. But his damage is not as good as you think when you get into late game, okay? He has a couple uses. Number one, Arena. And the reason why I don't think his Arena showing is good anymore is because not only is the Watcher team actually better, Valderon is only used right now in single target for things like this. 500 KBP. Now, if you know anything about Arena right now sucks even more than usual because of low BP abuse. Basically, what you do is you make your defenses have basically no BP on them to mess up your opponents that are running actually good teams. So you use a worse team just on lower BP to F over the better teams. And you want to know what the better team is? The better team is this Ingrid, Kagiri, Wukong team. Definitively, it is better. But the reason why Valorant is still quote-unquote meta in single target is because of the low BP abuse. Look, this guy's using a freaking level 1 common, 430 KBP. That team works. I'm telling you, this guy, he's using Numera, only works if your BP is 430. And then there's a couple Sithra teams that are pretty meta right now. But once again, the second this gets removed from the game, which it should be, this team is garbage. Valorant is no longer meta in single target. Alright? The other area I think Valorant is good in is Matrix. But like I said earlier, this requires a lot of requirements, right? Valorant really needs his A3 to work, which allows him to go through defense, which is pretty good, right? Valorant is decent in Matrix. I'll give him that. Not only that, he's useful in Codex, specifically Conqueror Codex right now, Gon's kind of better, you know, you can kind of get similar results with Ezareth if you're a genius, but Mintygo's kind of an outlier because he's really good at the game. Apart from that, I mean, that's kind of all Valderon's good at. He's mostly an early game unit, so I can't put him higher, but I will say, like I said earlier, Matrix value is very high. He's still technically meta in single target, and then Codex, he's very good too, so he goes in amazing above Demi. Now we get to Pope. Pope is one of the best lords in the game, easily. I would say him and Nestia can be swapped, but the reason why I value Pope more than Nestia is because Arena, mostly. Arena, if you look at last week's rankings, or really any rankings, you see that Pope is in 2 of the teams. This is just because Valara is so broken. Valara makes Esotericist and Arbiter Lords like Nestia and Pope just so much better. Pope is definitive meta in GVG right now. If you don't run Pope, you can run Nestia, but Pope's just a little bit better because Lady Alex also is an Arbiter. Basically, right now, despite Pope having a little bit of a fall off, Valara released and now he's meta again. Lady A is running the show as well. Pope just boosts both of them, so it makes him the best lord in frickin' Arena right now. That's just how it is. PvG, Arena, he's useful in a couple other areas, but those are the main areas he's great in. He just does a lot of single target damage, he's pretty tanky, and he buffs some of the best heroes in the game. That's just how it goes. Now let's talk about Solkadins. Solkadins is going solid. The reason why it's like this is because Infernals suck. Solkadins is only good in Abyss, and that's kind of it. Now, Abyss is very relevant, and he can do some good damage in other areas, like event stages, whatever. I think he's better than Elder, but I still can only put him in solid tier. Moving on, we also have Araka, who is also going to go in solid tier. Now, the reasoning here is if you have Iovar, who we'll get to, Araka's down here. If you don't have Iovar, Araka's up here. So to even it out, she's in there. Once you get Iovar, you never use Araka. Except for a couple very niche situations, like I've seen some GVG teams with her. I've seen her used in, you know, Matrix over Iovar. She has some uses, but the thing is, you know, Piercers are very good, but Iovar just makes her so much worse because she's definitively worse in every area and you never use her again. Now, Morrigan also is going to be rounding out the solid tier. She's great in Matrix if you don't have a good lord. That's it, right? Usable in the nuclear dungeons, definitely still usable, but I just can't put her higher, unfortunately. Moving on, we also have our Rygar. Rygars are going to go bottom of amazing. There's an argument to be made of him going solid. I think his nightmares are becoming phased out a little bit, and my Rygar co-PM is coming to an end. I have him. I haven't used him, okay? I still think he's good. If you don't have Torador, Rygar will be amazing. And also a lot of different event stages and just kind of stages I've been playing with where I was like, huh, I'm using the Nightmare. I want more damage. Rygar is definitively the most meta for those areas, but they're just not plentiful enough and not relevant enough. Now we get to Iovar. Iovar is an argument of being above Pope. I would say he's above Pope for me. Iovar is the most downplayed unit in the game. Easily. People tell me that Iovar sucks. I think you're delusional. Iovar is part of one of the better factions in the game, okay? He is meta in Arena. You will see some Pope teams, you will see some Iovar teams. Iovar is far more accessible, even if Pope has slightly higher highs in anti-air. Iovar still is, once again, more useful if your other units aren't the best. Apart from that, you know, Matrix, he's very, very relevant. If you don't have every single unit, Iovar is going to get a lot of use for you there. Alright, Iovar is by far the best lord in 2 different codexes, which is huge. He's the best in Mother of Crows, definitively it is not close. He's the best in Furious Torrent, sorry. It's not even close, right? Those are a couple areas there too. Not only that, he is amazing in every piece of content in the game. Really, like, there is no area of content you cannot use him, pretty much. I've seen people hit 60k in Abyss with him, which is crazy. No A3 Numera needed, just doing it, right? Not only that, he's the only the only option for Gear 3, basically, when you get into the higher stages. If you don't have Lady A, you can technically do it with Araka, but Iovar is so good here. If you don't have Iovar, you're going to struggle, or you have Lady A. And then for here, it is technically possible to do it without Iovar, but he's just so good that he's almost a requirement to even progress. Like, it's crazy. Every single stage that I play, I find a way to put Iovar in. Also, GVG, most VP, and one of the most used in defenses. With the flame tanks, he's less useful now for those teams, but in my opinion, he's a definitive lock for top 3 in the game. I refuse to change my mind. Now we get to Cyrus. Cyrus is the only Lord I don't have. I think Cyrus is the type of unit you cannot have in S tier. You cannot have in meta defining. Hear me out. No longer meta in high-level GVG. You can find some teams that use him, but he just gets crumpled by the Grotesque Fiend. Very good in Titanic Ruin, Matrix 1, but guess what? He's no longer needed, okay? He was needed at the beginning. Maybe I would have had an argument, but as you can see here, you do not need him for high scores anymore. I would argue you don't even need him for getting these high scores, because in my mind, Ezareth can tank just fine. You don't need to tweak his build that much. You just need slightly more micro. And what does this do? This makes it so that you can get rid of Cyrus. You can put it in an Ingrid and then just make Valara not have a Lord. Put it in the Stia so you can get a little bit more damage. That's what you can do, right? And Cyrus no longer is necessary. Alright, so if you guys haven't seen that video, I recommend, about the secret strat where you don't need a tank. Basically, Cyrus is still really good in Matrix, but he's not required anymore. He's no longer full meta in GVG. Apart from that, I mean, codexes, he's decent. You could use him in a couple areas because Esoterrus is very strong, but he's just not like as prevalent as he needs to be in meta defining. He's top of amazing. I think he's better than Valderon, but it's just like, I don't think he can go higher. Now we get to Ingrid. Ingrid's the best Lord in the game still. AoE damage, single target damage, part of the best faction, Kigiri, Wukong, Diaochan, all in her faction. She's Arbiter as well. Probably, you know, top 3 in freaking Arena as well. Actually, Ingrid's probably the most usable Lord in freaking Arena right now because she's the most meta single target. And then she's also the most meta AoE unit, and she's usable in anti-air. Really silly there. Abyss, she's the best Lord in the game. For Matrix, she's usable. I mean, you can stop using Cyrus if you need, or just put Ingrid in and have Valara on her own. I've used that before, it's super strong. Codexes, she's one of the best. Arbiter of Frost, she's meta. In freaking Styx, she's meta. In freaking Pelagius Codex, she's meta. She's useful everywhere in the game. GVG, she's becoming meta again with the Flame Templars because Iovar is getting a little bit less use. Just so broken. And then before I do Ezareth, Leia is going to go in amazing for me. That is because of a couple things. So, number one, when it comes to Matrix, she is kind of required, maybe? She's the most useful Lord for freaking physical. When new heroes come out for physical, let's say some new Nightmares, or some new Piercers, or some new, you know, Northerners come out, Leia will stay throughout all of that. Because Leia is just too important. She's a Lord of Kigiri and Neja and Talon, who are 3 of the top 5 DPS right now in physical. She's in every single meta team. It's hard to find a team that doesn't use Leia in one of the hardest pieces of content. Not only that, in Abyss, she's using a lot of high scores. She's kind of hard to use, and she's more of a leaderboard unit, but she is hitting crazy numbers. I mean, I've seen this number get high up to like 120k, which is basically doubling 60k, which is crazy. She's incredibly good there. Not only that, she's great in areas like the Gear Raids. Gear Raid 3, amazing. Gear Dungeon 1, I have used her in a couple takeovers. I mean, this team by Bitcoins, you can see, he used Leia, because Leia gives rage regen and damage increase, and is part of one of the best factions in the game right now. Tier 3, she's usable on the left side to make your DPS stronger and give rage. I mean, she's pretty good. I wouldn't say she's like the most meta unit ever, but she's pretty damn good. And if I'm ranking Demi and Elder highly because of Matrix, she's above both of them, definitively. And then we get to Ezareth, and Ezareth, in my opinion, is meta defining. I've been using Ezareth freaking everywhere, and he's been really good. For malware calls, you use him at the top, even if you have Valara. If you don't have Valara, he's like the only thing that works on the bottom, apart from Ardea, but even then, that's kind of iffy. Not only that, he's meta in multiple areas. So Matrix, once again, like I said, one of the most hero-locked pieces of content. He's the best lord for it. He can make it so you don't need Cyrus. He does some of the most damage, right? He needs a little bit of setup, which does hold him back, but I have been seeing him in some quote-unquote powerful meta GVG comps. He's usable in this codex, which is crazy. I mean, I'm using him, and he's really good, lord or not a lord, right? I think he's amazing. I've been using him all over the place recently. Any AoE content, he will automatically be the best lord in the game, and cultists have become a lot better recently. But yeah, that is my lord ranking. Let me know if you guys agree, if you disagree. Keep in mind, these are all just opinions, and you can still get some use out of some lords I don't really rate that highly. Just let me know what you guys think I got wrong, what I got right. And yeah, that's it for me. Sorry for the long video. So many things to explain. And I'll see you on the next one. That's signing it.